Hi, this is Mike, and this is Real Estate in 10 Minutes. Or at least I'm going to try to do my best to keep it in 10 minutes. So there's a couple things I want to go over, and I'm going to probably put my Chicken Little hat on for a second, and then I'm going to take it off and be an extreme optimist like I usually am. The reason why is because I have to tell you two scenarios. One scenario is what may happen, and then there's another scenario that will likely happen, right? So it's very easy to say that the sky is falling, but there are a few things that may pique your interest. So Ray Dalio a couple weeks ago went out on one of the Ivy League schools and had a lecture. And within his lecture, he mentioned 9 variables or 9 indicators that will explain whether or not we are on the top of a bubble burst or about to have a bubble burst and heading towards a recession. Whether or not we're in a recession is very arguable. Now, out of those 9, I'm going to only talk about 3 because those are the most applicable to the real estate market. One is we're highly leveraged, right? As a population, we're very leveraged, and to prove that is that, and I guess this is according to him, right? Purchases are being financed by high leverage. I think because of interest rates being so low, we are putting ourselves into bigger chunks of debt because we're able to afford a pricier home, right? Okay, so there's one variable, or at least one indicator that we may potentially are on top of a bubble and it's about to burst. Another thing within that first little point is that in '07 we were looking at a 38% debt to income ratio. As of 2019's numbers, they don't necessarily have 2020's numbers, but as of 2019's numbers, our debt to income ratio of our household debt to income ratio is at 37%. So again, in '06 and '07, we were flirting around 38%. Now, as of 2019, I'm suspecting that we may be potentially around 37% in 2020. A household debt to income ratio. So that's one interesting aspect within that point that we don't have an answer for. That's an interesting thing that we have to keep an eye on because if we're not making enough money to pay off our debts, we're an extreme uh, we are in we're not empowered to be paying off our mortgages, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes. Now, the second thing is new buyers are entering into a market. In any market, there's many markets that make up the economy, whether or not it's the tech, real estate, automotive. You can go down the list. Markets make up the economy, and within any market, there is a bubble, there is a burst, and there's a boom, there's a bust. Within this aspect, in terms of real estate, or at least is that we potentially are bringing in more buyers than we actually have in inventory, right? So, because of interest rates being so low, you see new first time home buyers walking into the industry as more than ever before, and they're competing with millennials are competing with Gen Zs right now. Oldest Gen Z right now is at 24. The oldest millennial is turning 40 in 2021. Then you also have baby boomers downsizing into new homes. So there's a little information. And then in terms of stimulative, so the third point in terms of whether or not we're on that bubble is that stimulative monetary policy threatens to inflate the bubble even more. You see it with the PPP or the PPE, and then you also see it with so the mortgage industry, which is an interesting point, is that the mortgage industry is about $10 trillion. The feds own a third of that. So critics say that the government is just essentially propping up the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So those are the 3 indicators that may decide on whether or not we may have that bubble burst. Now, stating that in terms of purchases and we're being leveraged or highly leveraged is that 16% of all FHA loans right now are delinquent 60 days or more. You're looking at 30% of all renters not being able to pay their rent. And then you also have, according to Neil McCoy Ward, he's projecting, he's an economist within, um, you know, take with any analyst with a grain of salt, especially those who are saying the sky is falling. But according to him, 2.2 million homes are going to be up through foreclosure in March of 2021, just because of the second phase of of the forbearances or forbearances, I can never say it correctly, forbearances are going to end in March of 2021. So keep that in mind. So we potentially we may be seeing in that scenario of Chicken Little Sky is Falling is that yes, we're going to see an influx in inventory in terms of real estate market. Now, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Are we heading towards a recession? It depends on the circles you travel in and the conversations you have, because there's many different variables that will determine whether or not we're heading towards a recession. Now, there are points that will determine whether or not we are in a recession. There's variables. There's check. You have to check off these boxes in order to declare it's a recession, right? High unemployment. We experienced that back in March, April, 12%, 11%, and then now we're at 6.7%. Last month in November, we were at 7.9%. So it's gradually walking towards a better direction as of now. New car sales dropped, but according to one of the higher ups within the big three, they can't build cars fast enough. So I don't think new car sales are going to be going away anytime soon. And then you also have the third variable or indicator let's say, erratic interest rates. I don't think lowering interest rates or having all-time lows being erratic. I don't think that's erratic. It's not an erratic situation right now, right? They're not jumping back up and down. They're low. They're extremely low, and they're bringing in new buyers, but it's just not erratic. Stating that that is the Chicken Little aspect, right? So again, the sky's falling. The situation is that you have to be liquid. You have to make sure that you have a lot of cash right now because there's going to be a lot of great deals coming in 2021 because of the forbearances. People can't afford their mortgages, high debt to income ratio. People won't be able to pay for their houses. So that's the Chicken Little aspect. Now, in terms of the other side of the coin, and why we're potentially not going to be in that scenario, is because of low inventory. The law of supply and demand right now is trumping any situation that we may be facing right now. You look at the stock market, you're seeing record highs. And of course, that's another indicator of a bubble burst is we're hitting all-time highs. However, the law of supply and demand is we can't make homes fast enough. New home sales, new home build sales are going to be an increase of 20%, close to 20% next year in 2022. And I give you the point of where this in 2020 it was a seller's market, and in 2021 it's still going to be a seller's market. But the difference between those two is that where this year you had minutes to make a decision based off of a home, next year you're going to have hours to make a decision, right? You won't have days, but you'll have hours. So now there's certain situations where there are sellers markets or buyers markets around the country, but like you see New York being a buyer's market, you see parts of LA. And the reason why I say here's the optimistic point of view is that because back in March, April, analysts, even me, I kind of speculated whether or not homes were going to be on sale, but the homes that were going to be on sale were Traverse City, around the lakes, vacation homes, but that's not necessarily true. You see it with Traverse City right now. You're seeing all-time highs. You're seeing homes being bought and sold at a regular influx. You see Lake Havasu in Arizona, same situation. Now you see cities. Yes, I think there's going to be a buyer's market for most of 2021, but we'll see what happens there. City of Detroit, same situation. Now, in terms of keeping the optimistic point of view, the reason why I think that we're going to have still a continuously strong market is because of, well, if you bought a $350,000 home today, you are still paying about $80 less than if you bought a home for $315,000 last year. So you're paying less on homes. So you're being able to level up on a beautiful home and pay less on that home. So again, you're introducing more people into the market. You have the biggest millennial generation possible. You have Gen Z competing now. You have baby boomers walking into the industry, downsizing, and then you see a decrease in inventory. Then you have high interest rates. Interest rates are potentially going to raise around the end of the year, but it's not going to be raised by but any by to any extreme. So that's the interesting point, is that again in 2021 you're going to see scenarios where there might be forbearances or might be more inventory come March, but I think we put ourselves in a better position possible. And I'm not giving any credit to I'm giving some credit, not all the credit, to banks. They did a great job of making sure that we could pay off our debts, or at least our mortgage. So and the difference between '08 and now is that a lot of homes in '08 were underwater, or they owed more on it than they actually could afford. But in this scenario, is most homes have a lot of equity in their homes, and a worst case scenario is if they were to not owe or not be able to pay off their debt, their mortgage, they would just simply sell off the home and at least take some equity off the home. That's one stance. And then the second thing is the difference between '08 and now, this different recession, is that Steven Rattner, who was on Yahoo Finance, was interviewed, and he was a CEO of a finance company, and then he was on the Obama administration. He mentioned the difference between the '08 and now is that private capital is still in play, rather than government capital, right? So Big Three got bailed out by the government. Now you're seeing companies being bailed out by private equity firms, and still companies that went into bankruptcy still got debtor possession financing. So there's a difference because there's money being passed around within the economy. So, and that's a good sign. Between '08 and '07, there was just no money. Everything dried up. The government had to pump more money into the system. So there's a little difference, right? So of course, with the higher unemployment rate, it's being lowered every single month. There is a potential for unemployment scarring, but hospitality industry, Orlando, still, Disney World opening up even more. Hey, that's a different argument. But I think there's a wild card here now, is that if the virus still continues, or this situation still continues, who knows what's potentially may happen, to be quite honest with you. I think it's a stimulus package needs to happen by the end of the year. I think that's super important. In terms of what's going to happen in the next 2021, if it's still an issue, yes, I think all bets are off. But as a buyer, the information to give is that, hey, look, this is a buy and hold scenario rather than a seller situation. Is that, hey, you're buying at a premium, or you're selling at a premium right now, so you're on the top of the market. You can wait one more year. By the end of the year, you're going to still make your money on your home. Whereas a buyer scenario is, hey, look, it's okay to buy right now. It's a great way to park your money for the long term. This is a 10-year play. This is a 20-year play. Let the market handle itself before you move your properties around. And I think that would be the two different advices. Of course, I am not this is no legal advice, yada yada yada, disclaimer, all that good stuff. But I think in terms of just a peer-to-peer, a person who really cares about you, or at least tries to as best as he can, I hope this is the most informative thing I can ever do, and that's mostly all I can do. So again, there's two different scenarios that may play out. I think the wild card is that we potentially have the virus still continuing. But I think there's certain things that are pumping into right. You have vaccines happening. You have the stimulus package happening. You have lower unemployment rate. Low inventory in terms of real estate. There may potentially be more homes on market because of foreclosures coming March, but I don't think it's going to be the extent of what we have seen before. And I think we connect with the recession of '08 to now, but housing market is very resilient. And you're seeing it now, right? Because you've had analysts saying since March, saying the housing market's going to crash, but it hasn't yet. And I'm kind of tough to say yet, but I think it will balance. I think prices are going to be balancing out just a little bit less, but still going to see record numbers as well. Other than that, if you have any questions or concerns, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm just here to help. I'm a local realtor, of course, and I'm here on behalf of Keller Williams, and looking forward to talking to you. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.